Cold open question of the day, Brendon Kleen. Our respective teams we cover in the Just Basketball Bowl, they didn't call it that in arena, unfortunately, but it was the Just Basketball Bowl. Cavs Suns Monday night.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. JB Bickerstaff, Cavs head coach, and Frank Vogel, the Suns head coach, both were asked about Donovan Mitchell specifically because Mitchell missed his 18th game of the season on Monday. That takes him out of the 65-game eligibility rule for All-NBA, awards, etc. He's not the only high-level star player that has come up against this or could come up against this or has come up against this. Joel Embiid is, I think, the biggest example, literally and figuratively, but someone like Tyrese Haliburton, you could go and look at a bunch of other guys, I think, and just see Devin Booker, depending on where he's at. Vogel, was talking about how like he believes there should be a cutoff, but like, is this the right one? It feels wrong in the spirit of these things to not have Mitchell and Embiid and these high-level guys on these lists. So, Brendan, I ask you, is omissions like that, Embiid, Mitchell, perhaps other guys, is that enough reason to you to look at saying, okay, maybe we need to rethink the 65-game rule after the season?
I mean, my instinct is to say no. It's exactly what it was supposed to do, right? So why would the league backtrack off of the rules working? I think if it were a star similar in stature to Embiid, who did not have the injury history of Embiid, maybe we could have seen a conversation. Like if one of these guys who rarely gets hurt, Giannis or Jokic or Shea, had a major injury, and not major, let's just say a significant injury where they played 64 games. I think that's the kind of situation that's going to kind of highlight it's just sort of arbitrary, right? Where did we get 65 from? And, guy who plays 64, maybe they play more minutes like we kind of had with Jaren Jackson last year with the minutes and the foul trouble and everything else, and that became a conversation. That's, I think, where it would start to get dicey, but saying Donovan or Haliburton or any of these guys, Booker's right on the cusp to go back to the Just Basketball Bowl, and he might not get enough if he has another injury. I just kind of think that's what everybody signed up for here. So it's going to have to take a lot more for anybody to second guess it, I think.
Yeah, I am cynical about this in the sense that I think maybe once a new TV deal gets done, they might just try to roll this back to some degree. But I also agree with you, right? Like, this is what the intended purpose was. This was to try to get the guys to play more games. Adam Silver has cited data. He did this at All-Star, talking about how guys have played more games. Where I do sympathize with the players and the coaches, and I think I get the sense a lot of them feel this way. And I get this. I sympathize with this. Is that it is just it might not happen this year or in the near future because the talent is so good right now. But like, is there going to be a year where someone is at like 63 games and clearly should be all NBA and doesn't get in because of 2 games or something? Like, there's going to be something weird that doesn't feel right. And if you're just saying, okay, how do we stack up resumes, stuff like that, and someone misses out on an all NBA team or something because they missed a couple games, I think that's going to be a bummer. I mean, Mitchell in some ways is a better example of this in regard versus Embiid, because Embiid's going to miss like just much more time. Mitchell's going to come back, could be
Embiid
Wednesday.
Never would have been a candidate the old way, pre-rule. He's missed so much time that no one would have actually selected him, whereas somebody like Mitchell maybe.
Yeah, Mitchell's going to come back, and let's just say he comes back Saturday, so he misses 19 games. He plays like low 60s, right? Finished out the year healthy. He's had a great year. That's like a little wonky as far as how close it could be of all NBA. So like, I sympathize with that of saying like that.
Here's the thing is like, even when this rule got passed, people went back and looked at it as far as how many All-NBA players had played fewer than 65 games, period. It just sort of made, and it was very few. It just, this rule kind of, like, it made it official what I think voters were already doing as part of their process of elimination for picking these things in the first place. So I don't really that's kind of been my thing the whole time is I don't want it to make players come back sooner than they should and re-injure or re-aggravate or limit themselves. And maybe you could actually look at what's gone on with Haliburton and wonder if that has played a role. He even kind of said it on the front end of his return. But I don't think it's the case that every year the 15 guys named to All-NBA were playing 56 games a year up until now when the NBA fixed this big problem. I just agree with maybe what you said at the very beginning of all of this, which is it seemed like a PR move from the beginning. And I kind of still see it as that until we really do get this fringe case where, add on the examples we're giving. Let's say the player with the 63, 64 games played in a really solid case is also coming up against a contract extension. Then we'll start to really see a lot of uproar about this. But until then, it's like it just kind of feels like it's supposed to make the league look good. And if they want to feel good about that, then, more power to them is my view.
Yeah, I think we're in lockstep here most of the way. I will just say, does this go away when it's like the NBA Cup on Netflix? Maybe. That's
I think you mean the Emirates NBA Cup, Chris.
That's sorry, the Emirates NBA Cup streaming on Netflix as like a lead into like Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul 3 or something. Cool stuff.
What more could
Great
you ask
times.
for?
Yeah, nothing. That's when I know I've reached heaven. I'll tell you, that's when I know I've made it. All right, on today's show, we're gonna dream up best possible NBA combos. We've got 8 questions about who is the right piece to put with these 8 teams, these 8 situations, these 8 players. Let's dive in on a new episode of the Just Basketball Show. Hey there, welcome in to the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. If you have not already, please subscribe, rate, review on your podcast app platform of choice. 5-star reviews only. Check that out right now. And hit notification bell on YouTube if you haven't already too. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, all your social media platforms. Want to tell you about our friends at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a player prop DFS platform where you can pick more or less on your favorite players across multiple sports, including the NBA and the NFL. Sign up today with our code JustBasketball, and Thrive will match your first deposit up to $250. Brendon, we've got a lot of teams and combos to get through today. Any other miscellaneous NBA things on your mind right now?
No. We'll have some games. I'm looking forward to Pelicans and Cavs, your Cleveland Cavaliers, on Wednesday, although if the Cavs aren't healthy still. I have my eyes on the Pels. I have my eyes on the Pacers. But this is we're not to Selection Sunday and a crazy women's tournament yet. We have some time before seeding and awards and everything really takes over. So it's a good week to zoom out a little bit, and we did that a bit on Monday's show, answering a bunch of questions that kind of define the NBA season. Now we're going to get even more imaginary and go into the fake world a little bit, go into the future, some hypotheticals, some dream scenarios, and have some fun. So let's just do it. Let's jump in.
Want to say I'm about to head out after we record for a little work thing for my day job, then come back. I'll be back Thursday night into Friday. Friday is going to be the night I just catch up on some basketball stuff, watch some games. I'll catch the Thursday night games, but maybe watching a little less intently. I'm washed, so I'm probably not going to finish the 10 o'clock Mavericks Thunder game before I need to get some sleep.
Got Sun Celtics, though. That'll be great.
That's going to be delicious. Very glad I'll be home before that too. It's great for me personally. Friday though, this is going to be like my slate of sitting at home watching some basketball, make myself a nice dinner to just kind of recharge. Well, let me just run through the slate. This is a gross slate of basketball except for one game, really 1.5 games. Heat Pistons, Suns Hornets, Magic Raptors, Clippers Pelicans.
Toronto now, Chris. Toronto might be – they're already a really brutal watch because they've been clunky forever since Kawhi left pretty much. But, man, are they awful to watch right now.
It's
just like
not
a bunch of guys who did not sign up to play next to each other, various levels of gunning for a contract or a role, and it's brutal. But yeah, continue.
Clippers Pelicans. That's the one. That's very nice, very good. 2 thumbs up. Nuggets Spurs, which is half of a good game because of Jokic and Wembanyama, but in terms of like team quality, 2 very different levels of team quality.
Might be headed for a blowout there. Take the under. Denver's going to rest its guys in the fourth quarter.
Yep. And then Hawks Jazz is the 9:30 late game. By 9:30, I might just like put on Blade Runner and consider all my life decisions.
Yeah, we're officially at the point in the season where certain teams are just they have chosen to not be worth watching. And I'm sorry if that makes us bad NBA analysts to say that. You don't have to.
No, it's just
yourself,
true.
Chris.
It's true. I agree.
But
this is the word. Like, I just wanted
the Raptors, the Hornets. It's just like, get off of my television, please.
My take is that March is the worst month of the NBA calendar because a lot of teams start quitting, frankly, and just stop caring and are thinking about next year and are just in like free fall mode and 1, 2, 3.
And why do you think that Mr. NCAA himself created a tournament to occupy our attention? That is exactly how this was all cooked up, and we will be spending our time watching the women's tournament. I think more so than the Jazz, for instance.
Yeah. Women's tournament, the most exciting thing that'll be happening in basketball until the playoffs start. That's just facts. All right, dreaming up best possible NBA combos. Brendan, question number 1. Who would be the best possible player?
We got to set this up first. We got to set this up.
You do this. You do this.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. But the idea is, and I think we'll flesh it out a bit as we talk here, as we give our answers, because we don't know what direction we went.
Yeah.
When I say dreaming, when I say best possible, I'm treating it as I'm not reincarnating Wilt Chamberlain or something, but I am treating every active player as fair grounds for being an answer here. So when we say question number 1, the best possible player to fix Boston's offensive process problems, the thing we all talk about constantly about the Celtics, it's not who's going to be available at some exception this summer or who could they realistically trade for with the first round picks they got for Smart. No, it is literally who, out of all of the, 450 players in the NBA, pick one who most checks that box. That's the idea. So it could be anybody from Damian Lillard, who they were kind of in on, Kevin Durant, who they were kind of in on the last year, to Luka Doncic, for all we know, right? So that's the idea. Literally every player is available when we are answering this question. So I will pass it back to you to give your answer. Who would be the best possible player to fix Boston's offensive process problems, Chris?
I want to troll. I'm going to just telling you right now. I'm going to troll you on this one right away. Just kind of like invert the question because I think it immediately means you're replacing Jason Tatum as the best player on this team. That's what this question means to me.
Okay, so this is how we're going to flesh it out because I just, with all of these, sort of took it as like you're just putting something into it. So the Celtics have all their players, and you can put another one on there. But I agree, maybe that's unrealistic because there's only so many guys on a team.
Yeah, and I think with Boston in particular, the way that they play, I think, has largely been dictated by Jaylen Brown and by Jason Tatum. It is those two guys creating the structure and the way they play. They have really good guard play, guys that can set up an offense in a real way, but it hasn't like overridden that need. Like if you said, hey, we got a more traditional third guard that isn't Peyton Pritchard and it's more like a Tyus Jones type, that's not changing, I think, some of the process problems. The process problems as much as they exist.
Think they stem from Tatum?
Yeah, I think they stem from Tatum. I think they stem not just from Tatum. I think it's from the Jays as a combo, and like if that's how you're building your team, it's from those two guys. So I think if I was gonna like add one guy as like an experiment though, and I can't believe I'm going to, this is, a very short-term, year and a half kind of vibe thing here. You know who I would want to just, come in and, be the process guy and keep the trains moving guy for Boston? Chris fucking Paul. I just would want to see it. If anyone's gonna like make them just like, hey, we're gonna move things a certain way, we're gonna process things, I'm gonna be an absolute like insane person getting you to run sets and come off of screens and not just dribble and jack up threes sometimes. It's Chris Paul. I'm just gonna say Chris Paul, and we're gonna ride that out. And because I think it's either that or you're just changing the star players on this team. You're changing what the Celtics are as we understand them right now.
I like that framing of it. I like the idea that it's not necessarily possible, as we've seen from Kyrie Irving to Gordon Hayward to a much better version of Al Horford once upon a time to Kemba Walker, that it's not as easy as put a guard and their problems are fixed. I think that's fair. And if anybody were to be able to do it, I don't know if 2024 Chris Paul is necessarily doing anything to change any team, but he did just put up almost 20-point triple-double against the Spurs on Monday. So
yeah, Wick, let's invent a time travel machine. We'll get Chris Paul like when he gets to Phoenix, but that Chris Paul comes to Boston. I'm not saying like prime Chris Paul. I'm saying like slightly younger, 3 injuries ago Chris Paul.
Very fair. So my selection here is also going a little bit in a time machine. And it is actually not fully, I'm thinking of any player in the whole entire world. It is somebody that they, once upon a time, did have they made a move on. Kawhi Leonard. Because the thing about Boston, maybe I think of them in OKC as like the East and West versions of each other in a lot of ways. And I think that they're both pretty difficult teams to fit onto. And we're going to talk about the Thunder later, so pin that. And so you kind of need a player that can fit into their defensive identity, who has the kind of drive and kick ability, is going to be fine taking a lot of threes if needed, and is good in transition, that type of thing. So I didn't want to just go like Donovan Mitchell or just pick a guard kind of like you were just saying. It's not that simple. So I actually think you doing the idea of this player might kind of be replacing Tatum serves my answer even better. So I love it. I'm going to go Kawhi Leonard. They almost, apparently, they almost traded for everybody for about 5 years there, but they did pursue Kawhi in 2018, sorry. And if they had gotten him, gotten this kind of late prime of his, I think they're substantially better. Just being able to give it to that guy and let him cook late in these games and really just simplify things. I mean, it's just a better version of what Tatum tries to do, frankly.
Yeah, I like that answer. I think also you're also getting like another level of the defense, I think, elevated in that case, just because we know what the differentiations are of Tatum and Kawhi as defenders at their absolute peak. In Kawhi, I think the difference between I think him and Tatum, if you wanted to really drill it down, is just that you think he's a little more ruthless. I think he's just a little more willing, like has the track record to get the midi that actually ices a game instead of the three or just some kind of weird late game mistake in that specific way, like that Tatum is prone to. Kawhi is just not prone to that stuff. Maybe he doesn't make every game winning shot, but he is not prone to the kind of style that Tatum is. So I think that's a great answer.
I mean, he feels like he's. There have been some seasons where it would be hard to say he hasn't made every late game shot. It feels that way sometimes with him, but I would say he's a little bit of a better passer, right? And I think he trusts his handle more. So I think those two things just kind of allow him to have the control over these moments where Tatum just feels uneasy all the time.
Control's, I think, the good way to put it, because I don't think of Kawhi's handle as like you're not getting like YouTube highlight reels dedicated to his handle in the way you might for Kyrie, but it is so strong and forceful that I think it differentiates a certain thing. Can I say the funniest solution to this that came to mind that I don't think is actually a good answer, but would be like the funniest outcome to this? It'd be James Harden. Imagine James Harden.
Yeah, no.
It's like, hey, let's get point guard James Harden, but he just starts taking like ISO step back threes, and it's like, okay, great. We're screwed even more. Great. I had like a long list, and he was on it, and then I was like, we can't do this.
I thought about Luka, but I think that's too far in the other direction. But that gets us to our next question here.
Number 2, who is the best possible running mate to help Luka Doncic get over the hump? Brendan, I'm going to let you take this one first.
I had multiple different guys on my list here. I didn't fully know what direction to go, right? Because you could look at it and you could say, okay, he's limited defensively. So you probably want somebody who's going to at least be strong on defense. They don't need to be elite maybe, but Kyrie, Jalen Brunson, they were lacking that. Especially because Luka is kind of a point guard, but he doesn't guard point guard. So you want somebody who maybe could do that, right? So I was like, okay, we all know the usual suspects like Haralabob Vulgaris, who does a bunch of podcasts and stuff and work for the Mavs front office, always talked about Drew Holiday. Like, okay, you could go that route. You could just get an awesome wing. I mean, you can almost, with every single question we're going to ask today, Chris, you could just put like Tatum or Giannis or KD, and you're probably going to be pretty close to right. I didn't do that, but you could, right? But where I went instead is a big man who is just the uber ultimate peak version of what the Mavs have very clearly been instructed, I think, by Luka to pursue when they gave JaVale a dumb contract and traded for Derek Lively and traded for Daniel Gafford and maybe even once upon a time what they were thinking Kristaps might be. And so I went with Anthony Davis.
Same, brother. Okay.
Really? That's
Same.
Honestly unbelievable. We're literally picking from any player in the league, and we both ended up with the same exact guy. That's absurd.
I wanted to say Giannis, but I am like, okay, that's just like too easy. That just felt like a little bit like, yes, I would. And the Giannis one appeals to me because the reason I wanted to like really kind of ultimately pick that one, Brendan, was because I think a guy like Giannis, who we know his work ethic, what that I think could bring out of Luka, I think could be really good for Luka and push him to another level. I think him kind of being challenged as a guy in that way, I think could be really good for him. That's not exactly what AD does. But if you're thinking about the next stage of AD's career and what he's going to be really good at as maybe LeBron retires and whatever, a big who can pick and pop at times. Certainly, like there's like the one run of jump shooting that really is better than every other run. But
if we have another pandemic, AD will make threes. Yeah.
I was going to say something I'm not going to. Really good defender, soft hands, can play different styles if you need him to. If you had like a stretch four to play with him that could also dabble in some five, you could do it. You could play 5 out with him and AD kind of being your only big. Like you could do everything with Luka, and their pick and roll would be so varied and incredible, and you could invert it. I think that's like real. Like, yes, maybe would you like that big as a 5 to shoot better threes? Sure, but those guys don't necessarily like grow on trees necessarily, and AD I think gives you everything else you could want.
As much like
he likes tradition. He likes and I think there's a comfort for him in a way that I kind of really like in having his bit. It's not really I want the big to roll because it kind of makes it easier for him to then like attack the big sometimes, and I also think he just likes having the lob option with shooters around. Like I think
because
he likes
he can get to that lob at any moment. Mm-hmm. That's the thing is like Luka is at the level of player, much like Durant or Giannis, Jokic. They don't need space. It's nice to give that to them. It's nice to have a team that takes a bunch of threes. It's nice to be able to have that dimension to your offense, but Luka doesn't exactly need that. So his greatness actually allows for a little bit more flexibility with the roster, so you can go for a player who's going to cover up defensively, who is going to be everywhere on that end of the court, be a great finisher, be a great transition scorer, and everything else. And the thing that, because I had Giannis too, to be honest, the thing that separated AD that made me go with him is I actually like that he's more comfortable settling into a secondary usage type of a role. Because we can pick nits about how much Luka should be dominating possessions for Dallas, but at the end of the day, some players are just like that. And to just say, put LeBron out there with him. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. And I think Giannis is kind of a similar thing. So I like the idea that AD is fine just being a roll man, fine just being a pop man, fine just kind of taking over when Luka's off the court and playing good defense and everything else. I mean, obviously, the LeBron-AD partnership has worked very well for a lot of these exact same reasons, and Luka is a very similar player. So I think that would be really fun. That was one of the cooler little combos that I came up with. It's hilarious that we went the same direction.
Brendan, my next one, as we get into question number 3, is my favorite one. And I think I'm just going to tell you now, it's going to sting you a little bit. I'm just warning you, okay?
It's all right.
Look at this. There's a Donovan Mitchell one coming, and
yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, we literally have where should Donovan Mitchell go? So that's going to sting harder than anything that stings me, I think.
All right. So question number 3: who is the best possible target for OKC to cash in its trade assets for and add to this core? And then same for the Knicks. Let's do the Thunder first. My answer is Kevin Durant.
He fits super well there. It's funny, right? I mean, obviously, a little bit of history.
That's the thing. It's full circle. He doesn't have to, it is ready made for him to come in and not have to carry the world like he has in his last couple stops as he gets older. He can, I think him and Shea is damn near unguardable in a playoff setting. Good fucking luck game planning to stop those guys. He gives them the offensive dimension on the wing that they just, J-Dub has some of that, but it's not going to be Durant. It just isn't. You could play those two guys together and Shea and still have Dor. And he fits great with Chet. And I want to go wing here. I think as much as I understand the urge to go say, hey, let's get a guy who can really be physical and rebound for this Thunder team, and maybe the playoffs change that and say, okay, this is actually more pressing than we thought, and they just paid 3 firsts for Jared Allen or something in the summer, or pay for Isaiah Hartenstein in some way or something just to go get a kind of quality big. I do think that part of the reason they work so well is because Chet has this unique thing at the 5. So let me go get another super uber all-time unique thing on the wing, get the full circle coming home moment, and let's put Kevin Durant and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and J-Dub and Chet as your core 4 for a 2-3 year run. And I think they could absolutely win a title in there.
So I get to root for Josh Giddey in this arrangement here?
Yeah, it's Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey, the other Jalen Williams, and Kason Wallace, and a bunch of teenagers you've never heard of.
Picks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So
do you like that answer?
I do like that answer because here's the thing. It speaks to exactly what I was teasing about the Thunder side of this conversation when I was talking about their similarities with Boston. They are a unique team, and the Chet dynamic of it is part of that, which you just highlighted, and it's really back to the deadline that we just got through where we were all answering or trying to answer a version of this exact question. They ended up not making their move, but if your answer for some of their front court problems is somebody who will be a backup to Chet or who will force Chet to play out of position, then you're already on the wrong track. Part of why I don't think they've made their move, part of why they are such a fascinating team to kind of do this exercise for is there are so few players, and this is actually similar to another team we're going to talk about later, and I'll tell you when we get there, who can play next to a great player who's already in position, which Chet is a center, but who can complement that. A rebounding, shot-blocking 4 who can actually play in the modern NBA. What's that list? So KD's
not sure there is a list.
Close. KD's pretty
I'm
close.
not sure.
Maybe not the rebounding, but the shot-blocking is there for it, and that's why I like it, is it's more size without sacrificing your identity, and that's kind of exactly what that's why Markkanen was such a fun fit, and why we all got excited about that. Obviously, KD's just a way better Larry Markkanen. I don't know if anybody's ever given him that compliment before, but I'll be the first one to do it. You're a better Larry Markkanen, KD.
That's the greatest sentence I've ever heard anybody say in the history of mankind. Brendon Kleen is
I'll
Kevin
tell him the
Durant
next time
is
I
a
see him
better
in Phoenix. Hey, bro, you're better
Lowry.
than Lowry.
Kevin, did you know you're a better Larry Markkanen than Larry Markkanen? And he'll be like, what?
A rich man's Larry Markkanen. The Lowry Markkanen before there was a Lowry Markkanen. Yeah, these are all going to make
Lowry. Lowry marketing with
eighth leading
burner
scorer in
accounts.
NBA history. He needs that comparison to make him feel good.
Yeah, burner account Lowry. All right, who's your pick for OKC?
I went with Anthony Edwards.
The idea him and Shea together to you is that works?
Yeah, I think it is, because the idea being here, I think it's honestly, to me, the part that I have a tough time wrapping my head around is him. It's almost like to the thing you were saying with Tatum. It's like you would have to kind of slot him in for J-Dub. Mm-hmm. That's the overlap that I would be more concerned about. But I was just sort of thinking about this from the standpoint of, let's get somebody who just kind of multiplies out everything they already do. Slash and kick, transition scoring, aggressive swarming, long defense, clutch killer, isolation ball. Like, it's already unorthodox in OKC. So give me somebody who just sort of does overlap, and I'll roll with that, was really my thinking. It doesn't solve the front court stuff you brought up. Obviously, does Edwards take enough threes to kind of play off of another guy, or does he have to have the ball? I think that's a valid question. But I was just like, let's lean into the craziness and let's just like amplify all the unique things they already are.
I think that's a good answer. All right, for the Knicks. This is an interesting one, Brendan, because I think you could talk yourself into a bunch of different things here. And I'm going to go with a guy from a team we've already talked about, and I'm going to say Jason Tatum. If I'm thinking about how can I level up Jason Tatum, I'm going to put him with Jalen Brunson. I'm going to give him the guy who creates structure almost better than anyone in the league right now. It gives them another wing. You can skew a little smaller in this way. Instead of having like the Randall and a big, you can play a little more modern. It gives them another shooter. It gives them more size. And it's a star play that isn't Karl Anthony Towns. I think Mitchell and Brunson is not the way I want to go if I'm them. I want a wing, and I think Tatum age-wise, skill set-wise, the things you can ask him to do differently for you, I think he would be the dream to me. Thought about Durant for this one too.
Exactly, right? Like you could say, I literally think you could say Durant for all of these. But so, okay, I went with Joel Embiid.
This is also a very valid one. Can we agree on one thing, even if we're answering this in different ways? I think part of the evolution here is just like doing something different in the front court vis-a-vis Julius Randle. I think like that's kind of essential to whatever thing you're going to do. Like that feels like the obvious spot to kind of churn out in some way.
I don't disagree. I think, though, that Embiid, kind of one of the guys of the not needing space thing that I was just discussing with Luka, where I think Embiid could survive with Randle. I think Embiid just sort of getting the ball at the free throw line, isolating, even if Randle's standing, not spacing great. Maybe he's in the dunker spot. Maybe he's just kind of wandering around in no man's land the way that he sometimes does. I don't really know if that's bothering an Embiid bucket in that type of position, just with the way that Embiid's been able to improve his game. It might not be perfect. Yes, maybe you want to get Randle off if we're doing the best possible imagination stuff that we're striving for here. But really, I kind of see Embiid at his peak as like a combo for a partner for Brunson of what Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle have been. And that was kind of the way I was thinking about it. But they definitely need a wing, so I like your Tatum answer too.
You could pick I think a bunch of the different kind of wings in the league and be like, sure. You could answer them in a bunch of different ways too. I think it makes sense.
So your idea with Tatum would be you said to have him basically, so he replaces Randle and he becomes their four, so they get a little smaller, but they still have Robinson and Hartenstein kind of as their bigs to keep that part of their identity.
And OG can like absorb the 4-man defensive stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they probably win the title if that's their team, so kind of hard to disagree. Although I think maybe that's still like, does that still run into the issue here of, is Brunson better enough as the guy at 6 foot, despite all the optimism we have about him? of is him closing a big enough improvement upon the Boston issues to have them be in a position to really slay the Dragons at the end of the season? Or do they run into some of the same stuff that maybe the Knicks already have now, the Celtics already have now, or it's like having the 8th best guy at the end of a game is limiting at a certain point. Whereas with my Embiid thing, it's like, well, he's like 2 or 3 or 4.
I think if I'm gonna test this out, Brunson's kind of the guy that I would want to be my test case for this. I don't think we would know until it happened. But I think if I was gonna bet on any point guard, kind of shepherding some of this, I would kind of bet on him just based on the control and the way that guy just commands the floor. It's like outside of like LeBron or like Luka, Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. Like how many guys have better just control of a game flow than Jalen Brunson right now? The list is tiny.
Yeah, I really hope we see the Knicks get at least to the second round, or end up in a really tough first round. I want them to be able to have a little more info about what this team is going to look like. I'm glad they're getting healthy before they do have to make a move. They don't have to make a move this summer, but I think we kind of all expect them to. And it would suck if it was like injuries just didn't line up, or they just faced the wrong team and things went against them, and it's like they're out in 5 games, and suddenly it's like, well, what are we really adding? Do we know what OG is? Do we know what these young guys are? Like, what's exactly the context we're talking about? So I think they'll get there, but who do you think they actually get? This
Towns.
Is that good enough? Would you
No.
Would you make a move for Towns if that was the only option, or do you just kind of keep rolling it over?
I think at some point they got to just do something, so I might just do it for the sake of doing it but the playoffs are going to decide some of this, right? Like, it's possible they get like Philly in round 1. Like the East 4 through 8 is like compressed right now in a way that, and like Boston's up here in their own category, just leaps and bounds ahead of everyone. The Bucks and the Cavs record-wise are together with a buffer over New York and Orlando and Philly and Indiana and Miami. The Knicks are at the head of that pack right now, but they're only 2 games up on the 8 seed.
Yeah.
Are they going to end up as could they end up as 4 against Miami? Like 4-5? Could they end up against Philly? Could somehow Indiana get their path is going to be really fascinating. I think to your point, I think if they played Boston and we saw how that went, that would tell us something if something like a Towns move would be enough.
What about Jaylen Brown for them?
I think that's another one. And I think if you're talking about another guy coming out of that Boston system that Boston could spin it for them as we save money and we get some wings back that can kind of do some of these other things. We're a little deeper on the wing, even if we're maybe not better per se.
The Celtics take a step back if they trade Jalen, I think, no matter what, but we know the money crunch, and if they just don't win a championship this year, I think they're probably going to have to look themselves in the mirror. So it's just more of an opportunistic, hey, can we be the team to take him off your plate? And I think the Knicks have enough. I don't know if they'd have the best possible offer, but you're paying that guy a lot of money. I don't know how many people are going to be lining up to take Jalen in the first place.
Would you take a hypothetical Knicks package or a Trae Young package from Atlanta?
I don't really like Trae for Boston primarily because of the defensive concerns. The defensive identity is still going to be there for the Celtics, and that's part of what we were hitting on with that first question is, you picked Chris Paul, but I think, the idea being try to keep what's there and just see what you can do to improve upon that. I think that'll still be their MO, even if they flame out again, even if they trade Jalen. It's their team is their team. It's not just those 2 guys, Porzingis, Holiday, White. Those pieces all build toward one thing, and Trae would just be a diversion for that. But yeah, the Knicks will have their pick. I think unless the Jazz or the Thunder get involved, they're going to have as good of an offer as anybody. So we'll have to see what they do. But let's go to number 4. Who is the best possible player to juice Miami's offense as Jimmy Butler's prime comes to a close? This is a unique question, Chris, because the Heat run under Eric Spoelstra an offense that I don't think you can just pick any old player to put into and expect it to work. So that's why I threw this one in here. Jimmy continues to wow us every single spring, but that's not going to last forever. They're not a team that likes to bottom out. I'm sure they are having this type of a question in their heads. So who is the answer in your head?
I'm going to answer this joking way and then the serious way. The joking way is whomever the current version of Deanne Waiters is when Deanne Waiters showed up in Miami and just took over the league for like 2 months. Remember that?
Yeah. I heard Dion is trying to get back in. Maybe it's just him.
Can I just say, this is like a random G League note. SLC Stars have Isaiah Thomas, Jason Preston, and Kenneth Lofton Jr. That's like, I might need to just watch some SLC Stars because like that's Mad Libs. That's basketball named Mad Libs.
Got to go to Utah. Sounds like that's where it's all happening.
Yeah, sure, okay. Oh, that's true. The real answer, I think, Brendan, I think there's two guys that come to mind for me. They're both bigger wing. One's a guard, and one is like a bigger wing.
Okay.
They've both come up today already. One is Luka, and one is Donovan Mitchell.
I can see the Donovan thing. I do not see the Luka fit. I do not think that's how they play. I don't think he would execute or be effective on defense the way that they ask for. His, let's say his BMI might be a concern preseason if they do some of the testing that they've been known for. I'm not sure Luka's making it through a training camp under Spo and Pat personally.
Yeah, I'd want to see it. That's just like, hey, star talent is star talent kind of bet. Like, yeah. That's kind of because, like, ultimately, I think, like, if you go back to the origins of the last, like, 15 years of the Heat, it rested on the Heatles more, like, and then it's evolved into this other thing. But I think at the core of it is, like, let's just go get, like, really good fucking basketball players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, how much did fit with Bam factor in for you here? How much was that in your thought process? Or is it kind of like you're finding a guy better than Bam, so he matters maybe less, ideally?
I mean, I think he matters into it, and I think Mitchell in particular would be like a really great fit with Bam. The handoff stuff with him and like it would just be like, I think, frankly, unguardable in a lot of ways, particularly as Bam has gotten really good in the middle of the floor. Luka, I think, would be like a little different. I think that fits a little like it's not exactly like the Luka kind of big that we kind of talked about earlier. So maybe Mitchell. Yeah. I think my exact answer is going to be Donovan Mitchell. I think that's kind of the one. Because he's kind of like at his best, he's like a more 3-point heavy version of the way Jimmy plays. Not as tough and physical, but he's got like the same kind of the way he wants to play in terms of like how it looks a lot of the time. So I think that's like kind of the more seamless one, and I think you'd be really accentuated by the way they want to play. Like I think the stuff Miami does and they're kind of known for would elevate him. In some of the stuff that maybe are his bad tendencies, they could kind of push some of those things out of the way for him.
I think the way they scheme their defense would maybe be the best situation he's been in defensively, whereas Utah and Cleveland guard a little bit more straight up. Miami likes to sort of overhelp and kind of hide and disguise their zones and stuff like that.
Let me say this. Let me just say this more. Let me say this more bluntly than that. A little less kind than that. Cleveland and Utah were designed to let Donovan Mitchell not have to do very much in defense and try. Miami's going to make him fucking try. Like that's as simple as it gets. I think. Cleveland's like we have Evan Mobley and Jerry.
Try, but physically, I think if you're not asking him to constantly be like fighting through screens and. They just have a good way of accentuating, but also kind of maximizing their defensive talent. I mean, like, I don't think any of us feel like Jaime Jaquez is one of the best defenders in the NBA, but you watch him in Miami, it's like you probably could convince yourself he is. So, yeah, I guess it just sort of depends on how you look at it. My answer, Steph Curry.
Okay, this is wild, bro. Just thinking of Steph anywhere outside of Golden State to me just doesn't like it. Just feels
it's the point
like,
of this whole thing. We're letting our imaginations run wild. We're not just gonna. I didn't want to say the same guys. I didn't have any duplicate answers or any duplicate kind of connections or anything in this. So I was really trying to just blow the top off all the possibilities. I mean, you're talking like think about how Duncan Robinson has performed the past 4 years in Miami, or how Hero, some of his best moments, what Terry Rozier or Kyle Lowry have done in kind of this flow, motion, dribble handoff heavy, transition heavy offense, I feel like Steph is a perfect fit for that, personally. I mean, again, to your point, he fits in Golden State the best, but if I were to put him somewhere else, I don't really care for the purposes of this question what it means for the Warriors or Draymond or Steve Kerr or anything. For the Heat, if I were to cook up the best guy in a laboratory that I could to fix my offense or take it to the next level, you might want a younger option. That could be a net you pick with my Steph answer, but I think Steph would be an amazing fit with how they play, and obviously he's still kind of a one-man offense a lot of the time.
He would be. I do think to your credit in thinking of this is a creative answer. I do think he would be so amplified in a crazy way by what Miami does and just the way they want to play offense all the time. I mean, imagine Bam like feeding him back out as he relocates. Like good luck. I mean,
like Bam's gotten Draymond comps, right? So it's kind of like, let's just go to the younger version of the guy that's been feeding me for years already.
It would, that would be fun. He would be him in that
a more dynamic scoring threat than Draymond ever was. So the 2-man game has another wrinkle when you actually have to guard for Bam, driving to the basket, pulling up, whatever.
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna be thinking of. I'm just like, it's just like I'm picturing like. This is not the point. I am just thinking of like Steph Curry like wearing like a Miami Vice jersey. Now I'm kind of like excited by this. They need to just bring those back, by the way. Just for, like no more Heat. Just give me Miami Vice jerseys.
Can't argue with you there. All right. Next question. What is the best possible landing spot for Trae Young? And this is a little bit of a shot at him, but it's fine. To be more than a big numbers guy. To win. To really be a relevant playoff every year type of player. We have another guy we'll ask a similar question for as part of this one, but let's start with Trae. I'll give you my answer first. Is that cool?
Yeah, because I'm curious to see like what level of team you go for, because that was the hardest part of this exercise for me, was saying like, okay, what is like the level of team right now? Like, is there like a contender that needs him? Is there a team on the upswing that you could say would actually fit him really well? I think you could answer this a couple different ways.
So I went with the Lakers.
Okay, I like this answer. I like this answer a lot.
Truthfully, it's like you don't have to look much further than, despite his warts, some of the stretches over the past 2 years that D'Angelo Russell has been able to have for this team, and the way that that's helped them, you know?
What an indictment on Trae Young. It's just like, I'm like, no offense to D'Lo, who's out here giving like Jake Paul like signed jerseys after games, which is just like a weird thing that has happened, I guess. But don't know why even I know that, frankly. Just thanks a lot, Instagram. But like what I think most people kind of understand D'Angelo Russell to be, it's like just kind of funny to think of. I mean, that would be a big scale back for Trae if that's like kind of what he does, and maybe that's not the worst thing for him, but it's just kind of interesting thing to consider.
Well, no, I don't think he would. He's better than D'Angelo Russell, so he would earn more of a responsibility. And even with the moments Russell has had, the Lakers' offense has been a huge issue, which is why I'm forming this imaginary partnership here. Is I do think the Lakers need somebody where clearly Davis is not going to be the guy to do that on the offensive end. To maybe, if it were to be in the immediate term, take some of the responsibility off of LeBron. Longer term, be a partner for what Anthony Davis is. Maybe you even factor in a little bit of fit next to Austin Reeves, although that's less important to me. I mean, do you not think of Trae Young and D'Angelo Russell as similar players? I think they're very similar players. They want to get to their pull-up jumper. They want to run a lot of high pick and roll. They're going to take some errant shots. They're going to get a little flashy. I think they're like D'Angelo Russell is like a worse version of Trae Young kind of through and through to me.
No, I think that's right. I think Trae's definitely the better passer, I think is the big differentiator to me in that case. Yeah. I think he is just better in that specific capacity. So I like this answer. Yeah. I like this answer a lot. The Lakers were on my list. The Clippers were on my list if Harden were to go and he just can go there. I think that could be really fun for him. Brendan, I went a little weird here. I went with the New Orleans Pelicans. I know they're coming up later, but you're telling me he gets to kind of be table setting in some degree for their scores. He has a good lob option for himself still. He can feed Zion. He can feed Ingram. They have Herb Jones and all these big wings to cover for him defensively. I think that's a really great infrastructure. I mean, that team's been crying out wanting a point guard for a long time now. So I think that one to me it's a good age range for him. It's kind of all guys that I think have kind of gone through different phases of their career and would kind of line up in a certain interesting way that way in terms of personality and arc of their careers. So I went New Orleans.
Isn't it kind of funny doing this exercise and trying to think of what a team really is and then just allowing yourself to like have all the pieces be very fungible when it comes down to it, how few players in the league, but even on any given team, truly kind of matter or like form the identity? It's like, what are we even saying that the Pelicans are, right? If we're being so imaginative, it's like, do Zion and Ingram even fit? And then if they don't, it's like really starts to be confusing. But if you're imagining that kind of infrastructure, they're I think the weirdest team in the entire NBA to me. They have basically turned Zion and Ingram into point guards. If you look at their box scores on a night-to-night basis, those guys are both over 5 assists a game pretty much every single night. And we think of them both as like scorers. Alpha dog, give me the ball scorers. And yet a lot of the nights it's all these other guys filling it up and they're just passing. It makes no sense. So I think Trae would fit, but I honestly don't know what the Pelicans are. So I have a hard time even guessing. The Pelicans will come up in a minute, though. The other guy we have for this is Donovan Mitchell, which is the sting for you that we referenced earlier.
Yeah, and the sting's going to be double because my answer is the Lakers.
Okay.
He gets to play with AD. That's really good for him. I think LeBron would be really good for him. It's a big market. I think part of the New York thing for him is like a big market thing. I do think there's something with him where it's like he played at Louisville, Utah, and then I do think there's part of him that does just like maybe want to be somewhere bright and shiny and what that could bring out of him. I'm not saying it's exactly true. It's just kind of like a gut feeling for me. And not that he's like been unhappy in these places, but I think he's like looking for some kind of different recognition. I think the Lakers in terms of prestige, I think in terms of the pairing of stars he would have, and then like what he could then kind of, as LeBron retires, then ages out, and then it's like him and AD's team. I think him and AD is a pretty good combo for the next couple of years, as they're both kind of in their primes to later primes. So I think for me, Donovan Lakers is a good one.
In order for Donovan Mitchell to win a championship, he is the what best player on a team?
I could see a world where it's like one, like there's like a 1, but he's like the 1B or 1A, where he's like the best offensive player, but the best player on the team is commanding the defensive structure.
So if it is the Lakers, you feel like let's give them like awesome role players, what Denver has right now, or what Boston has, or what the Lakers had the year they won the championship.
Yeah, remember when they had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope?
Title team? Yeah, I remember. That's a title team to you? Donovan, AD, and a bunch of awesome role players is going to win a championship?
I mean, I think it's possible. I don't know where it depends where the league is at. Like I'm couching that, but I think like in terms of who can you pair him with, that's kind of the right kind of star to me to pair him with, right? Like I think I already kind of gave the other answer is like kind of the one I already said, which is Miami, but I didn't want to duplicate myself. So the Lakers is
gotcha.
kind of the other one that the Lakers are the one that pops out to me. Otherwise, it's like it's not the Knicks to me. I don't think it's Brooklyn. Lord knows what's going on in Brooklyn right now. Like you could maybe tell me.
You're like looking at it as the teams that could go get Donovan this summer. The idea is like any team in the whole league. I went with the Nuggets.
So okay, this is why you're better at this than me, I think, Brendon, because him with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray would like we're giving the Nuggets 1 title, 2 titles, 3 titles, 4 titles. Like good fucking luck stopping that team.
Here's the question though: does he fit with Murray, or would he have to kind of replace Murray?
No, I think they could fit together. I think you're sending Michael Porter Jr. to like Cleveland, I guess. Like, yeah. He might fit in certain ways in Cleveland. Is all I'll say there. Or in Ohio, I should say, broader than Cleveland.
To me, the answer is like a second best player who doesn't even always have to be that, which is kind of what Jamal Murray is. Although in the playoffs, Jamal Murray definitely has to be the second best player on the Nuggets. So maybe it's that. But you're talking about a team where defensively, what you're being asked to do is fairly limited. You have size, you have physicality, you do not have to be dominating possessions ever on offense outside of the 10 minutes when Nikola Jokic is on the bench, and even then, you're going to have shooting and defense around you to protect you there. And I just think Jokic would bring an element to Donovan's game that is sorely lacking. Off-ball movement, catch-and-shoot volume, even, consistently getting transition looks, things like that he just, I think you could obviously go back year by year, whatever, and pick nits of who was around him, was everything maximized, whatever. But I think on the whole, with several years under our belt with Donovan Mitchell now, I'm comfortable saying he makes it harder on himself at times. And I think Jokic would cut back on some of those habits in a way that would really benefit him. So I just felt like we were going to go through this whole exercise and not bring up the Nuggets or Jokic, which feels crazy because they're the best team and the best player in the league, and we're supposed to be doing the best possible this and that. So I had to go with the Nuggets somewhere, and it felt like Donovan was the right guy.
Yeah, I think that's the best one. The next 3 questions, to your point, like don't have really Nuggets vibes.
No.
Can I tell you our next question, which I'll just say, number 6, who is the best possible addition to make the Kings real contenders? The hardest question for me to answer on this list.
Yeah, it was tough. KD would be an awesome one here, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Who'd you go with?
It's pretty. So I'm going to be rude to Domantas Sabonis for a second and say it's Bam Adebayo.
Just instead of Sabonis completely. That's really the best way to answer this one, unfortunately. And I
don't
that's
like
true, but
so give me Bam, who can come in and be everything you want defensively, give you a lot of the same kind of energy offensively, just not as many triple doubles. You can still have all the shooting. Is this exactly going to get you, I think, where you need to be? No, I think there's okay, who is the best possible big addition, and then what are 2 other moves you need to make? But that's kind of the thing. But Bam would give them something defensive that they're just never going to have as long as Sabonis is their 5. And again, I don't like saying that because Sabonis is fun as fuck to watch, and he's awesome, and he's really good, and what he's done there and what him and Fox are together is awesome. But Bam would be better at that. And Bam just giving you a competent defense when you often do not have one. Pretty good if you're the Kings, I think. And I think he could play at the pace that they play at too.
Yeah, it's that contrast between Sabonis and Adebayo is it's a cool one because they are so similar in terms of kind of their functionality as what they are as offensive hubs at the center spot, being a little undersized, all of that stuff. But obviously the defensive gulf is massive. The other thing that's massive, though, and that favors Sabonis is the physicality as a rebounder and interior scorer. Yep. So you do lose that, right? That's part of why Sabonis is still making all-star teams and still making a lot of money and feels irreplaceable to the Kings in his own way. Is that element is important, and it's a big part of why they have the best offense in the NBA last year, and I don't know what's going on this year, but still have a high scoring ability if you get him on the right night. My answer is, again, very out there, but I believe in it. Victor Wembanyama.
See, like this is a good one because you could do a ton of different things with him in the structure of this team. It's good that we got Victor in this conversation. Brendan, I have him for one of our last two is what I'll tell you.
Ooh,
I'm not
nice.
So he's coming. But this him and Fox would just be like good fucking luck stopping that, and that's also like that allows you just to like maybe it's like, hey, we have Malik Monk, like another guard and De'Aaron Fox all on the floor together because Victor Wembanyama is an alien who cover that, and like frankly, you could play him and Sabonis together, and I think it'd be fine.
Exactly. That's really where I was going because I think your answer of having to replace Sabonis is probably the truest if we're being real about the state of the Sacramento Kings. But
can I just to compliment you? I like that you took this as like I'm gonna do some 2K shit, and I'm just like, yeah, but 2K is I'm frankly being a stick in the mud with some of these, and you're just
I think
you're like
is exactly right if you were to go about it that way. That's why I said at the beginning when I was trying to set it up is I'm like, we didn't really get like incredibly granular about the rules of all of this, so we were going to end up going different directions. But I think to me
the best one's still the first one, just because I went Chris Paul and you went Kawhi Leonard. That's still like the fucking best one possible.
I'll give you if we make a graphic out of this and Dylan helps us out there, I'll let you put like Phoenix Suns Chris Paul, just like I'm gonna say for Donovan, I'll probably say the Jamal Murray role in Denver, not just Denver, because I tend to disagree. I think he might. I don't know how he would fit with Jamal. I think he might have to replace him. But back to Wemby here, Vic here.
Caught yourself. Good job.
Thank you. I just think he kind of can play the four, and the growth of his three-point shot, his playmaking, his defense in space, all of that stuff over the course of even just his rookie year leads me to believe that if you had to make it work with a guy like Sabonis, you could. It would still win a lot of games, could even be championship caliber. Aside from that, he's going to fit anywhere because he's like a point center that's going to win 20 rookie of the defensive player of the year awards. So I don't really think
maybe
I have
20
to describe too much.
Maybe 20 rookie of the year awards too. You know, maybe like the new award is just like did anyone have a better rookie season than Victor Wembanyama, and that's like how we decide the award, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that this upcoming draft class would take that from him. So there's number 2 already. But no, I think obviously the bigger question that leads you to is just like, what are the Spurs going to do to build around Vic? And we have plenty of time to talk about that as it actually happens in real time. But the point is you can throw him in with just about any guys that are good, and you're probably going to have a great team out of that. All right, next question. Best possible complementary piece next to Zion and Ingram. We talked about the Pelicans a moment ago with Trae. Did you have Trae?
No, I didn't duplicate, so I have Chet Holmgren.
Ooh, I like that.
I
was talking about this. Yeah, no, go. Give your case.
No, stretchy big. Doesn't overlap with Zion inside. You could play them together. Going to be a force defensively. Really smart, intangible player. Competitive player. And I think just accentuates what those two guys do and doesn't like get in their way for what they do and where they want to play on the floor. We've seen that with him in Oklahoma City. I think that's why he's hit the ground running so fast. So Chet Holmgren's my answer. I thought about like Evan Mobley for this as well. I thought about Alperen Sengun for this as well. I really went big for this, Brendan, in part because every time we've seen like trade rumors with this team, at times it's just like for 2 years in a row, I did blogs at Fear the Sword at SB Nation where it was like the Pelicans are interested in Jared Allen. So like clearly they want a center. I don't think that exact center archetype is exactly what I'm looking for if I'm them. I would want like a Chet who can space it, and then it'd be like a Mobley or a Sengun. Sengun would be very fun too, but that kind of gets into like the point guardy stuff and like what's going on there. So I went Chet just for the 3-point shooting alone.
Yeah, that's exactly why I would say. I mean, he's better than Valanciunas, right? But JV has not been a perfect fit next to those guys because of his limitations. So I think Sengun, you'd run into some of those same problems even if he is better. You need that spacing 5. What I was going to say is I was talking about this with Hiroki Witt, our mutual friend, Your
Shout out
friend who
Brunswick
I've
High School.
adopted a little bit.
That's right, Brunswick High School. Let's go.
Because we were watching the Suns play the Celtics last week, and I was just commenting on how guys like Miles Turner, Kristaps Porzingis, and now you would include Chet on that list, legitimate kind of two-way spacing fives. It's strange how theoretically you can look at so many rosters and say that team could use a guy like that, and yet those actual guys with that skill set seem to be undervalued every single year. The Celtics got 2 first-round picks along with Porzingis when they acquired him. Turner was on the trade market for years and then had to take kind of an undermarket contract extension after it was all said and done. It's a weird archetype of player that like we all think in the modern NBA is just perfect, and yet teams aren't really kind of clamoring to go get those guys. I think Chet will be the exception because I think he might be the best of any of them, but he's exactly what New Orleans needs because they've been, I think, rumored with Miles in the past and whatever else. So I like that answer. I have Tyrese Haliburton here.
It's a good one. It
kind of jumps
right
us to the last question, but
yeah,
somebody who can play up tempo, who doesn't need the ball, who can shoot, who's big, even if I think, we're all kind of disappointed by what Hallie has become as a defender in the NBA so far. Not like it's over. He can improve, but that part might not be ideal considering Zion and Ingram are also both kind of average at best defenders, in my opinion. But offensively and size-wise and versatility-wise, I think it kind of checks a lot of the boxes. It's similar to your Trae answer from a few ago, but it's just another kind of complementary guard that can fill in however he might need to on any given night and is unselfish in a way that maybe Trae isn't always. So that's my answer.
And just one other name I would throw into that category if they were to, and the pace would be a little bit different, and he would need to get pushed in this direction. It's kind of one of the big concerns for me with him as a player right now. But Darius Garland would fit that as well. I think if you're looking at a guy who can shoot it, hasn't played well this year, but very unselfish, willing to feed into things, willing to kind of play a role and pick his spots at times. That's the other that would be another name in that run.
Well, and to their credit, right, with the Pelicans, yeah, they're kind of weird with their 2 stars. They've done a lot to make that work, but the thing they do have that helps those 2 guys and would help any potential guard who might not be a defensive stopper that they could look to bring in is they have a bunch of solid defensive wings. Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy sometimes, guys like that. Najee Marshall even is better than a lot of teams have. I mean, the Pacers' best wing defender is Aaron Nesmith, who's an unproven dude. Put him in New Orleans.
Hey, NBA Cup
4
superstar.
Guys as good as Aaron Nesmith. So, I think that would really help Haliburton too, to be honest with you, not just make the Pelicans better. But last question is about Indiana. Who's the best possible fit with the most high-octane Tyrese Haliburton-ish version of the Pacers? Do I need to explain what Tyrese Haliburton-ish means?
No, I don't. No, it's high pace. It's big guard. It's very offensive, forward thinking. It's no breaks. It's like it's an updated version of like the 7 seconds or less Suns. I think is like the end result here.
Yeah. Who was your answer?
Victor Wembanyama. Can run
I knew
the
that
floor,
was coming because you said it was coming and you didn't say it, so pardon for not having the surprise, but
no, it's.
I like it. Do you think he can play that fast?
I want to see. Yeah, I think he can. I think he's going to be able to do everything, and I think like him getting out on the break, even if him playing fast in the system at times, Brendan, it's just, hey, I got a rebound and I'm going to dribble the ball up the floor and go, or I'm going to just sprint down the floor and fill the lane and try to get a lob. That's like almost enough. It doesn't need to be that complicated. He just needs to like have the gas tank to do it. Not do it all the time, but pick his spots on it even a little bit, and I think it could be really effective. Like I think Evan Mobley could fit this kind of as well in a different way. Really good defender. Is at his best, frankly, offensively at times when he gets a rebound and just goes. I think that kind of big, as opposed to a Turner who's a better spacer than those. Like it's just a more proven spacer, but maybe not as the upside of him as a defender isn't quite the same. It's not as long, and he doesn't. I don't think he's like necessarily super great at playing fast all the time. Like I think you could find bigs that are younger and kind of more equipped to play that way. And Wembanyama's at the head of that class, and I think Mobley would kind of be like your I don't want to say like dollar store version of that, but like the not as good version of that. It's like a Target store brand versus like the $5 more expensive deodorant at Target.
So I had trouble with this one. And the reason is the Siakam fit is really bumpy. Mm-hmm. It has really affected Haliburton's flow in a way that I was not expecting. And that gives me pause. My answer here was Giannis.
Yeah.
But I thought about LeBron. And I just, no matter who I went to, I was like, but if giving it up to Siakam here and there, slowing things down here and there, balancing with another guy who's just a normal run-of-the-mill scoring type of player is tripping Haliburton up in season so much, then maybe, I don't know. I don't want to overreact to a small sample, but it did make me wonder, like, is it harder to fit with Haliburton than we thought? And that sounds like a crazy thing to say.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other names that could be fun here.
I mean, like in November, we would have said throw anybody out there. It'll be great because
I still kind of believe
clicking.
that. I still just kind of believe that. Like I believe in him so much that like that's not really a concern for me. Trying to think of like like Tatum. Like this kind of could be like you could turn the dial up on like a Tatum like chaos energy like even more in this way. Brown too. If you did either one of those guys. Like that would be that kind of. I was trying to think of like a young like 2020 and like newer draft class guy that would make some sense in this regard. Like to just kind of the timeline and like Cade wasn't really that. Jalen Green I don't think is really that. Although Jalen Green I think would benefit from like that kind of tempo. I don't think Scotty's really that answer.
You're not going to say Jalen Green is the ideal perfect anything at this point.
No,
right?
but
how about this one? How about this one?
Giannis is good though. It's inspiring. See, that's a good one because this would like eliminate some of the things that don't work for him as a player. Like even more so than Ja kind of eliminates those things that don't work about him as a player sometimes in terms of his comfort with the ball and just like making decisions on offense sometimes. You want to like dial it up even more and more consistently. Haliburton's the way to do that, and it would be a good defensive fit for Haliburton and still a good pick and pop threat. So yeah, I think Jaren Jackson's like a great answer.
Right.
Yeah. I'm more willing to like run Miles Turner. Like Jackson's at his best, I think, offensively oftentimes when he's just going, you know?
And he can grab and go in a way that Turner can't. And if they're not really going to be like super worried about defense and rebounding and stuff like that anyway, then, you know, maybe Jaren can even evolve a little bit and be different than he has had to be in Memphis.
Over under 5.5 rebounds a game for Jaren Jackson Jr. on this Pacers team. I'm like, 6.5. Like, where's the line at?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe just do the Steven Adams. Let Tyrese get all the rebounds. Just put your ass into somebody.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last question before we go. What is of these questions? What's the best one for 1 year for a team that should like get 1 year of LeBron, aka draft Bronny and try to get LeBron James? Like, what's the answer of these questions? Of like, what's the 1 year LeBron answer for next season?
That's a great question.
Miami
could not even begin to answer it. I was gonna that out of the teams we've talked about today, Miami was also what came to my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Miami. I don't think it's Indiana. I don't think LeBron playing fast is like good for anybody. At 40,
it's not good for him. No. But again, we were dreaming here, so he's also never going to play for the Indiana Pacers, obviously. So it's all fantasy land either way. But yeah, Miami of the teams we talked about today. Yeah, it just him and Jimmy. It's like I don't even know what is LeBron even going to be next year. What is LeBron right now?
I mean, he's getting called up by Logan Paul for SummerSlam, Brendan. So I don't know what to tell you.
You're really up on the Paul brothers. We should do a pod on that next week.
I would rather light myself on fire, is what I would say. They are from Cleveland suburbs, and they were in my feed today because of things announced in Cleveland. And there's going to be just like I live not far from where they're hosting WWE SummerSlam, and like that's just going to be like a Paul brothers like week in Cleveland. Like, yeah, that's going to not be for me.
Sounds like it's for you is all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not
Look, if
trying
Logan
to tell you what you like and don't like, but I'm just observing what your mind is on, and today it's really been about them. I don't know what to tell you.
Did mention them 3 times. That's a problem for me. I got to detox. That's a fault on my part, Brendan, is what I'll say.
All right.
Let me ask you one final thing. Mm-hmm. Which of these things do you think is actually like that we kind of went through would be to you, like, in this world where trades are crazy and all of that stuff, do you think you could see as actually being like the most possible of actually pulling off? Like, I feel like the Thunder, anything involving the Thunder or the Knicks and their picks is my default answer for that. Maybe it's the Pelicans and Trae, something like that. Like a Trae trade is also kind of the other one, but I think those would be it.
Yeah, those were going to be my answers too. I would say Embiid to the Knicks is, we were talking about that fairly realistically until the start that the Sixers got out to. The Lakers for Trae has obviously always been there because of clutch. We know some of the teams we discussed, Miami, New Orleans, Dallas is always looking for trades, so they could do any number of things. Maybe they are a little resource limited on some of this in a way that they're obviously not going to get the guys we talked about, but they're going to make some kind of move. I just think it's crazy we didn't list Nikola Jokic for anybody.
I mean, maybe is he the Pelicans answer?
I mean, the thing with him is, like,
he's retiring if you trade for him?
Well, yeah, maybe. But no, I was going to say, to my point earlier about, like, if anything is available as an answer, then it's like you just get Nikola Jokic and get rid of everything else and start over, and you just build a team around him that looks a lot like what the Denver Nuggets already have. So maybe that's kind of part of it. It's the same with, like, LeBron once upon a time, right? It's like you're not adding LeBron to something. You're just getting LeBron and then doing whatever it takes to make LeBron the best he can be. It doesn't really matter what else you had before. So I guess it's kind of that thing with Jokic now.
Yeah, I think Giannis is like a version of that too. I mean, Victor Wembanyama is like a version of that in like his own kind of weirder way. So a lot to consider there. But that's going to be it for the Just Basketball show for Wednesday, March 13th. I am Chris Manning, your Paul Brothers correspondent, apparently. That is Brendon Kleen, twice a week here. Back next week with more. Sabrina Merchant's going to be on next week to help us preview the women's tournament. A whole bunch and more coming down the way as far as NBA playoff push goes. Until next time, enjoy the hoops. We'll talk to you soon.